Hello, I'm going to talk about how to add an advertised listener to a Kafka broker using Ambari. So the challenge is if I have a multi-homed machine, let me see if I can pull one up. If I have a multi-homed machine, and I want to, let's say I have an internal interface and an external interface, and I want to have Kafka advertised via Zookeeper that I want a particular interface to be used to connect to Kafka. It's difficult to do that using out-of-the-box configurations in Ambari. So what I'm going to talk to you about is something very simple, a very simple change. It uses a feature in Ambari called configuration groups. And I'm going to create a configuration group for each Kafka broker in my Kafka broker or my Kafka cluster. And so let me just show you. So if I look at summary right here, I see I have two Kafka brokers right here and right here. One of them is on host, if you see that, Kafka http-kafka1.ohio. I have another Kafka broker that's http-kafka2. And like I was showing you before, if I look in at the machine, I see this is HTTP Kafka 1, and I see that has two interfaces. So the challenge is if I look on the configs, I see that, I'll wait for this thing to come up, I see that I have a listener configured using localhost, which will convert it to the actual local host name. So if I go to these hosts, and I do a netstat -an, I see that it's listening on a particular IP address. Kafka's listening on this particular IP address. So now we're going to fix that. So we're going to change this to 0.0.0.0. And then we're going to save this. And this will require the new configuration files to be pushed out to the Kafka brokers. So we should see a little orange warning. I'm going to restart the Kafka brokers. So once those are finished, we should see that Kafka is listening on not just one interface, but all the interfaces on the box. So now you see instead of listening on this particular IP, it's listening on all of the interfaces on the box for both machines. So the problem with that is if I look at, if I go into Zookeeper and I look at the broker entries in Zookeeper, so if I do a get on 101, I can see that the endpoints right here, specifically right here, the actual connection endpoint is 000, which isn't very helpful if I have something like a Kafka consumer right here that's connecting to Zookeeper and trying to connect to the brokers. So in order to fix this, we have to add a configuration right here called active or advertised listeners. The problem with this is the listeners do not work in the way that you may think, being that they can't use multiple host comma separated entries to specify each Kafka broker for the advertised listener. So you can't just do something like this. And then specifying, you can't just do something like this. This doesn't work. You can't do something like this. which is my internal interface. This does not work as well. You'll get an error in Kafka if you do this. So, in order to make this work, we have to use what they call a configuration group in Ambari. So if I go to Manage Configuration Groups, I will create a new configuration group. I'll create another configuration group. So then I'll go and add the first Kafka machine. And then I'll add the second Kafka machine. So now you notice that decremented my number of nodes I had in the cluster, which was 11. It decremented it to 9. And then I have two new configuration groups with nothing being overridden. So let's fix that. So now that we have these configuration groups, we've defined those. And now if I click this drop-down box, you'll notice I have Kafka 1 and Kafka 2. So if I go to Kafka 1, I can go to Custom Kafka Broker, Add Property. I can add that in my configuration. And then now that will be saved. So I click this. And I have to restart because I've made a configuration change. So now when I look at when I click on Manage Configuration Group, when I click on this, instead of saying overrides 0 properties, it says overrides 1 property. So I'm taking all the configuration from the base configuration, and I'm only overriding one property, which is this, because I have to specify a particular host name. So I can go on and continue making all of my changes to default, and it'll affect all of the Kafka brokers. And if I need to make a particular change to this one property, I need to change the configuration group. So once I do that, and you want to make sure that you add your configuration groups, or I'm sorry, you want to make sure that you add these properties after you create the configuration groups. So now you'll see that I have that. I'll save that, and I'll restart. And you should see now, once this restarts, that I still have my brokers listening on all interfaces right here. But if I go look at Zookeeper, and I go look at if I do a listing, make sure they're there, and if I do a get, I see that the interface that I've selected is registered, the internal interface. And this you could switch this around. You could make it the public interface and not the internal interface. It's completely up to you what special entry you put in Zookeeper. So you see broker 1 and broker 2 have their appropriate entries. So now if I test this real quick. Let's see, I think I have a topic for AAA. Let's get the consumer up. That looks okay. You can tell there was something in there. And you see that just came up. Anyway, that concludes the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.